It's not often that a completely new Aston Martin comes along. In fact, the arrival of an all-new Aston is a pretty special occasion, one that calls for pretty special attire. Although all is not what it seems. Because this is a very different type of Aston Martin. It's called the DBX, it starts from £158,000 and it's the company's first ever SUV. It's an all-action, all-terrain Aston. Throughout its entire history, well over 100 years, Aston Martin has been making sports cars and grand tourers, as well as runabouts for the world's most famous double agent. So we know Aston can do 007, but can it do 4x4? That's what we're here to find out. First though, I'm going to slip into something a little bit more comfortable. So here we go, off-roading in an Aston Martin. There's 6 different driving modes to choose from, 2 are off-road modes, and I've stuck it in terrain mode at the moment, which raises the car with the air suspension, so helps you crawl over rocks and boulders and mud and water like this. I would have thought Aston Martin could do the doggy paddle. It's got a proper four-wheel drive system as well. It's got one diff in the middle and one at the back, which means not only can it put the torque between the front and back, it can also split the torque across that rear axle as well. And there's more clever off-road tech, like its independent air suspension, which can lower the car by 50mm or raise it 45mm from its normal ride height. So if the going gets tough for the normal riding height, you can whack it into Terrain Plus mode, which I will do now, which means the car is 45mm up, and it just means it kind of turns into a bit of a mini monster truck. I guess before the DBX, the only time you'd ever go off-road in your Aston is if you crash, so it's a bit bizarre doing this, but I guess if you've got the crazy urge to do so, you can actually leave the road on purpose. But it just feels such a strange sensation. Oh, that was steeper than I thought. Such a strange sensation in such a beautiful car going over terrain like this. But as impressive as all this is, there's a problem with testing the DBX on this off-road course. Let's be honest, nobody's really going to drive their posh SUV over muddy obstacle courses like this. I think we need to head somewhere, well, somewhere a bit faster than this. Right, back to business and the vital statistics. Up there's a 4-litre V8 twin-turbo engine making 550 horsepower. 0 to 62 takes 4.5 seconds, 700 newton meters of torque, and a top speed of 181 miles an hour. They're big numbers, but to be honest, they're the same as pretty much any of the super SUVs out there, such as the Lamborghini Urus and the Bentley Bentayga. And surprisingly, all of these heavyweight super SUVs are pretty good at handling as well, and this is no exception. When it comes to corners, this is just incredible. When you consider the car's 2.2 tons, it's high up as well, and height and weight are the enemy of agility when it comes to driving a car, but this certainly doesn't feel like a 2.2 ton car. Often car makers will tell you, they'll say that their cars, their SUVs, drive like sports cars, and I tell you what, you're not far off with this one. Of course you feel some body roll, but it feels playful and nothing like the SUVs of old. And if you want to be a real hooligan, you can even get it a little bit sideways. How un-SUV is that? And the reason you can get a bit of oversteer is partly due to the fact that it can send up to 100% of its power to those rear wheels. The DBX has computers to monitor the grip level of each wheel and distribute the power depending on what's needed. Those clever computers, they also dab the brakes individually to help the car around the corners like this. And talking of brakes, there's no carbon ceramics with this car, but hit the brake pedal hard and whoa! Apparently you can pull 1.4G, which is the similar sort of stopping power to a DBS Superleggera. But I'm afraid to say, there's a problem with testing the DBX on this track. Nobody, absolutely nobody, is going to drive their 160 grand Aston Martin DBX on a track like this. What we need to know is what this car's like on the road. I think the thing you notice first of all is how comfortable this car is. Without stating the obvious, it feels like an Aston Martin. It feels like a Supreme Cruiser, a Grand Tourer for crossing continents. As a daily driver, I think SUVs are perfect, although they're often under fire from people saying that you can do everything in an estate car that you can in an SUV, but they're wrong, you can't. In an SUV, you sit higher, you're safer, you've got better visibility, a lot more room. This car, for example, 5 seats that will fit 5 6'4" human beings, which just happens to be the same height as Merritt Reichman, the design director for Aston Martin. But imagine 5 6'4" people cruising down to the south of France in here, no sweat at all. You try doing that in your RS6. Effectively, SUVs these days, like it or not, are the new GTs. These are the new Grand Tourers. They're what people actually use for long distances, stuffed full of luggage and kids and Labradors and whatever else you want to take with you. But having said that, an Aston should also put a smile on your face. And that's what these other modes are for. You've got Sport, which makes things a bit stiffer and a little bit louder. But then you've got Sport Plus, which gives you the full Spinal Tap soundtrack. It sounds good, and I think it looks really good too. SUVs are a tricky thing to make look appealing, but the DBX does a nice job of borrowing from the Aston design language while still having its own identity. And you normally associate Aston Martin with being as British as a bulldog in a fish and chip shop, but that 4-litre V8, which we know from the Vantage, isn't exactly homegrown. In fact, it's German, sourced from Mercedes, as is the 9-speed gearbox and most of the infotainment system as well. Don't get me wrong, this is no bad thing, but the question is whether the DBX still has the heart and soul of an Aston Martin. And you know what? It does, it really does. It's handmade, the finish is very good. You look around the cabin and you've got this hand stitching and the glass switches and the real carbon fiber, the real metal inside. It does feel handmade, it does feel like an Aston Martin. And I'm glad it's different in many ways to its rivals, the Bentayga, the Cayenne, the Urus, and the RSQ8 as well. Those cars all share the same VAG DNA and use platforms repurposed from regular family SUVs. But the DBX is bespoke. This car was built from the ground up. It's got an all-new aluminium platform, and it encapsulates the Aston Martin charm of old, a charm that goes back well over 100 years. And Aston are taking this car very seriously. They've built a whole new factory in Wales to manufacture the DBX. They're staking the company on it. They've created a brilliant package with this car. They've just got to hope there's enough off-duty secret agents looking to do the school run.